I move into the OpTic house, and obviously being a big fan of OpTic, a big fan of your stuff for a long time, and then kind of seeing the behind the scenes of what's going on in that like transition period where you go out on your own before 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves starts. Now you're back here. So it's been a long road. What is your relationship like with OpTic now? Like when you see the logo, when you see the name, when you see the people, like what goes on in your mind? I'm sure it's very complex, or maybe it's not. Damn,
no,
it's so complex you had to bring them out. You had to bring them out.
Yeah, bro. Well, I got strays sitting around the house, and I'm almost out, so I had to bring 2 with me. It's a whole thing. So it's definitely complex because it's gone through like, what are like the 12 stages of well, that's alcoholism. The 5 stages of grief, or whatever the fuck it is.
You think you've grieved OpTic?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean it was certainly hard to a lot of pro players would say it back in the day. But like if you weren't on OpTic, you were either like with them or you were against them. It doesn't matter what team you played for. It didn't matter like how good of a guy you were online or how good of a player you were. OpTic's fan base really does like bleed green. And after how many years I spent on OpTic, it's not that I was jaded. I don't think jaded or resentful was the right word, but I definitely felt like different not being a part of the brand and the team anymore. And when you're in that environment and that level of love is shown pretty much for the better part of my career, especially as an adult, to not have that anymore is like it's very jarring.
Yeah.
Even when like Thieves started up, I thought that there would be more people that like understood that this comes from a place of good and authenticity and like being in competitive COD since the very beginning. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to be the number 2 team. Like, we're never going to be bigger than OpTic. I know that. But we're still going to be, rivals, but also like friends of the brand in a way. And I don't know if I ever felt that. It's hard to go back and think about it just because even then, me and Hector were back on good terms at the beginning of Thieves, but it's not like I was talking to him every day. It's not like our relationship is as it is today. And so I kind of just felt, I felt like an outsider on a team and a brand and a family that I was always on the inside of. But I made my bed, I made the decisions, and I got to live with those decisions. So over the years of sort of getting desensitized to the idea that I'm like completely separate from this thing now, and a lot of people that are fans of OpTic, some people might say just because they want to feel like they belong, might say they know about my time. But a lot of people that are watching OpTic to this day probably don't even remember when I was on the team. And so I had to get comfortable with that. But now it's a lot better. The only things that are hard for me now is that when you guys are doing something fucking cool and dope, and I would want to come just because it's, a lot of my friends, I will not go out of my way to like say anything to anybody. And I make sure I don't say anything on stream either because I don't want, you know how Seth is and Hector and Bose and anybody in OpTic. It's like as soon as you say something in chat, all of a sudden it puts like this pressure on them to like invite you to things or be a part of things.
Yep.
So I've had to have like really good discipline about just knowing that OpTic and Thieves are separate. OpTic is this, and they're going to do that, and I'm this, and I'm going to do that. And if there's crossover and cohesion between the two and there's shit we get to do together, awesome. But I had to really, really, like, sort of have discipline with not trying to feel like I'm not back. You know what I mean? I'm not in OpTic.
Yeah.
And we have 2 separate businesses, and in some ways, in a lot of ways, they have to be treated as such.
Yeah.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Was there a time, like, not even since you moved down here, because I'm sure that either made it easier or harder. I'm not sure. But was there ever a time where you were like, that was tough to deal with?
No.
You were doing your own thing, but it was just a thought.
I got invited to the Race Master Prestige, but I'm like, dude, I can't spend a week at the compound or at the Hex quarters.
That was my idea, by the way.
My dog.
I was like, we got to get Nate in there.
My brother. No, because like you guys
kick Zen out, put you in.
No, bro, you guys really made it like special. Like I was watching it, when I wasn't streaming myself. And I said no to it at first, and I would still say no to it because my wife and daughter are at home.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And since I'm streaming all day already, and Haley has to take the grunt of the loneliness, and which she doesn't feel that way, and she's very independent, and she loves being a mother. So I've got a pretty perfect situation for the most part from everything I know and how much we communicate and talk about it. But I just couldn't spend a week locked in a room when I'm like right down the street. You know what I mean? Like I could be there and let you guys do your thing.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that. I really do. And then I would say like the watch party is really hard. You know, Seth and Bose and Mark and Zinni and Hector and all of OpTic, you guys have done. I mean, Seth is the guy for the watch party.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have Thieves and I didn't have like my own separate business to think about, I would definitely be doing more than I am now to like tell Seth like, hey, let me get in.
Let me get on.
Let me just come like kick it and hang out.
Yeah.
But they have to be like separate. You know what I mean? Like Seth has built this thing up. It's his thing. It's OpTic's thing. It's been a massive success. And to be honest with you, the only person that would really benefit from being a part of the watch party would be me. Their show doesn't get any better with me on it, and it doesn't move the needle for somebody like Seth. So that's why in my mind, I'm like...
But that being said, like anyone on set, it's not just... That's not someone outside of OpTic. That's anyone. I mean, I love Bose and I love Zen, but they've become a part of the watch party. But when Seth started it, he could have been like, I want fucking Obama and Zuma on it, and we would have made it, and like we would have made it happen, and it still wouldn't have moved the needle because it's the Scump watch party at the end of the day. So like, I think people love when you sit in those chairs.
No, for sure. But you know, at the end of the day, like what I'm trying to say is it's Seth's thing. I respect that. I wasn't there for the start of it, the execution of it. I have no entitlement to be like, hey, let me come on like every other week. Let me come on every week. And I'm sure I'm going to come on at some point to watch a match together.
Yeah.
Like for Thieves OpTic at some point or another. But in my mind, like the watch party thing, me like sitting in a call by myself or even hanging out with Zuma and Octane and theirs, like I fucking love those guys. I think Tommy is actually one of my favorite streamers to watch because he's so over the top. How you doing?
Yeah, he's a fucking man.
But, you know, I don't have like when I was in the competitive COD scene, I wasn't kicking it with Tommy. I wasn't kicking it with Ben J. I wasn't kicking it with Sam.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that I kind of grew up with. Maybe not as much Zin because of all the shit that happened. But, you know, with Mark and Seth, I'm like, I would fit in here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's the only part that's hard from like a majority of time spent on stream. I'm like, it would be better if I were over there, but I'm doing my thing here.